Hello and welcome to tonight's session. My name is Bo Manry and my business partner, Chris Goff, will be joining us here in just a few moments. Now, we love doing this for our REI Pro members, and I can tell you that many have written in thanking us because they've been able to take this advice, things they learned during these sessions, and go make thousands of dollars investing in real estate. But first, I want to take just a quick second and say thank you. Thank you to all our current, our past veterans, and just say Happy Veterans Day early. We thank you for your service. Now, this session will be recorded and available inside of REI Pro, so we encourage you to go back and listen to it. Again, repetition is the key to learning. We'll also be taking live questions, so if you want to open up that Q&A panel, that way you're ready to type in the questions should one pop into your head. We'll be doing that after we finish all the questions that were sent in for this week. Now, for those of you joining us, welcome. We're glad you're here for tonight's live Q&A session with Bo Manry and Chris Goff. So let's go ahead and bring in my business partner, Chris Goff. Welcome, Chris.
Tomorrow is a big day, Veterans Day, and so happy Veterans Day to all those veterans out there. And any active or former military, we do appreciate your service and, Godspeed. So a lot of people may not know Bo. I was actually in the Air Force, and I thought I'd share with you real quick because, it was a big deal to me. But this is the plane that I worked on. I was a crew chief in the Air Force. It's the F-111. And I remember, when I went to school, a lot of you that have followed me and know my story, when I was a kid, my dream job was to work on airplanes. So I go to school, get my license, do all the right things, and I couldn't get a job at any airline, so they weren't hiring. It was one of those down markets. I said, what am I going to do? So I went into the Air Force, and so go through boot camp and all that great stuff, and they assign you a plane, right? So I'm thinking I'm going to get something cool, like a stealth fighter or something like that, because I had college education. I had, the degree and license to work on planes. And they assigned me to this plane called the Aardvark. And I'm like, what the hell is an Aardvark? I was like, I think you guys got this wrong. I'm supposed to be on some cool looking plane. And it was the first time I've ever had heard of this plane. And went to Clovis, New Mexico. And I found out why I was on that plane, because that thing broke just about every flight. So they did decommission the plane. But it was such a cool plane, very fast plane to work on. And it was a privilege to be in such a part of an awesome group of individuals that come together for one purpose, and that is to defend our country. And it's pretty awesome to be a part of it. And it's awesome for those that are out there and sacrificing their lives every single day. So anyways, I just thought I'd share that real quick picture with you guys.
Well, heck, I guess I can say, thank you for your service as well. I myself was not in the military, but I am a huge proponent of the military, and I can't speak more highly of our military. In fact, what I want to do, Chris, is for any of our current or past people, if you're in the military right now, or if you were in the military, you're retired, I want to send you guys a copy of this brand new documentary that came out. Chris and I were the executive producers on it. It's called The Folds of Honor, and what a truly fascinating story. This was to help out the children and spouses of fallen soldiers. They take care of them, help educate them when otherwise they wouldn't even have a chance at being able to do that. So I really want to send this to you guys. So if you will, I'll type it in the chat window here in a little bit, the coaching@myreipro.com. If you'll just send us your name and your mailing address, I would love to get a copy of this full thing to show you. I think I want to show them the trailer of this too, so they can see just a quick glimpse of this.
And just so you know, this film won 2 Grammy Awards, which is pretty cool. Like, we're the executive producers. We didn't get the award, but for the film to win 2 Grammys is pretty awesome. But we did get something I wanted to show you guys. We did get 2 of these really cool Telly Awards, and I can tell you these things are like 5 pounds or 10 pounds each. I mean, these are not light things here, but it was awesome to be a part of this. And we thought, what a better time to show you guys. If I don't think we've actually made this public ever, as far as the trailer. Maybe I put it on Facebook at one point, but I would love to just share this trailer, as Bo said. So just please take just a few minutes to watch it. Again, we are going to be streaming it from YouTube. You can't search it, but so depending on your internet, it may not come in as perfect, but just bear with us. And then we're going to jump right into this live Q&A. We've got a ton of really great questions. So Bo, whenever you are ready.
Okay, here we go.
What button is it?
My husband, Jonathan Bryant McCain, for those of us who really knew him, he went by Bryant. He was a true American patriot.
Sean loved the outdoors. People just knew him as this kind, happy, easygoing guy. We tried to make the most of the time we had as a family, knowing he was going to be gone a lot.
January 31st began like every other day in my family at our house. My dad gave us all his quick little kisses goodbye as he left. And my mom got a call later that afternoon. There had been an accident.
My mom had yelled, "Ashlyn, stop," because she had looked out the window. But at that point, I had already opened the door to see the two officers standing there, and I knew what that meant.
We have had just in Iraq and Afghanistan over 1.5 million dependents, so spouses and children who've had somebody killed or disabled. 9 out of 10 get no federal education assistance. And could our government do more? You know, sure. But I honestly, man, I look at this as an opportunity for America to come together. It's not a red issue or a blue issue, it's red, white, and blue.
If you could do anything for that fallen man or woman, the one thing they would probably ask you to do is look after my family if something happens to me. That's what Folds of Honor is doing. They don't let them fall through the cracks.
I started Folds of Honor above our garage in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Our mission is to provide scholarships to spouses and children who've had someone killed or disabled defending our freedoms. We awarded almost $16 million in scholarships. We have millions in unfunded requests from families. That's why it's so important that we keep being the voice.
As a mom of young children, I was not thinking about college. I have to get these kids through elementary school and high school without their dad. I needed help now, not 18 years from now. Folds of Honor meets a big need.
This is real people having a real impact. To me, the domino effect of what happens with Folds of Honor is unlike any other charity I've ever seen.
This year, for the third time in event history, golf legend Jack Nicklaus will help kick off their 10th annual Patriot Golf Day.
I remember the first time Dan and I met, and I knew his passion. Here's a guy who's really dedicated to try to improve the lives of families, and that I thought was very special.
You really want to honor the troops and honor our fallen soldiers. You know, help take care of their family, help put their kids through college. It's an easy thing that anybody can get involved with.
They give their life for you, and people just go about their lives like it's no big deal.
It's been an awesome opportunity to have Folds of Honor be with me. It's such a monumental thing for me to have a family to be a part of.
The impact they've had on our family has been so much greater than just financial.
Everybody forgets that this serviceman gave his life or is living disabled forever. And the fact that we acknowledge that and we say thank you by providing an education almost to a recipient, they say is more powerful than the dollars that he gave me.
First question from Marcus Jackson. It's about lease option. Hey guys, great job, by the way. Can you explain in a little detail the profit centers of a lease option? Thanks.
Yeah, so lease options, one of my favorite strategies. I don't know, it's just one of those home run strategies. It took me forever to learn this one. But what I wanted to do is actually show it to you in a PowerPoint presentation, because although I'm going to give you an example here, I want you to understand the concept, because what business can you get into where you get paid 3 times every time you do it? I don't know any. And what I love about lease options, we call this one of those no money down strategies. Obviously, you could use your own money, but most of the time we don't. We use the buyer's money to do this. What business do you know that you don't have to actually put money into and get a return? That's why, if this is a strategy you've been thinking about doing, this is the one you want to learn. This is the one you need to go through the lease option training series and REI Pro and really nail this one, because the fact of the matter is not many people really understand it. You know, I think the people that do it understand it, and the people that say, oh, I don't know, I heard it didn't work, those are the people that just don't understand it. Okay, so I really want you to grasp this concept. Again, this is going to be a quick example I'm going to give you, but I want you to see the power of this particular strategy. All right, Bo, you ready? All right, so what I want you to think of is, we found a property and we're going to make an offer to the seller. Okay. And of course you need to run comps, you need to do your due diligence, but I'm going to bypass that because I want you to understand how we connect these dots as far as the profit center part of it. So the number one thing we need to determine is a sales price. Now, could we pay full price? Absolutely. You could pay full price. It's just going to narrow your profits. Okay. So obviously we want to get somewhat of a fairly good deal on this. And I'm not saying you got to, get 50 cents on the dollar type of deal, but I want to get a fairly good deal where I can make a little bit of money off of it. And who knows, maybe this property is worth $375 as an example. You think about it, even if the seller listed it with a real estate agent, there's going to be a commission paid on this. So they're not really going to get the full asking price anyway. So I want to kind of fall in at a number that makes sense for everybody. Next, I want to determine the down payment. To me, this is the easiest part. I'm going to give you one good way of doing it. I never determine the down payment until I understand what the home can rent for. Okay, so after doing my due diligence, if I find out, hey, this house can rent for $2,500, then I want to go less than that because I want to charge my new buyer the $2,500. So once I go less than that, I'm going to just use $2,200 as an example. My down payment is exactly that or more. Okay, so in this example, I'm going to use $3,000 down. Now, again, this is a non-refundable deposit that is applied to the purchase price if the buyer buys. Okay, so again, we're going to get a fairly good deal on the rent, and I'm going to go low for the down payment because I need to get more than $3,000 from my new buyer. Then we determine, is there a monthly credit? I don't like to use monthly credits, and I think it confuses people. So in this example, I'm just going to say 0 monthly credit. And then I want to try to get a term of 2 to 3 years. Now, if the seller says 1 year, we could still make the deal work. But I'd like to go longer just to give ourselves time, because I'm going to put my new buyer on a 1 year. And if they can't buy, I still have 1 more year left to do something with the property. All right, next. So then we find our new buyer that can't go to the bank. They just need a little bit of time. They could be self-employed. Their debt to income could be a little bit off, but the credit's not horrible. It's just not good enough to get the loan. And our buyers, they just need a little bit of time. And, you have to say that a lot of people are in this position right now. And again, that's why I think this is a great strategy. So our sales price to the new buyer is going to be $375. Our down payment here is 12 grand. Now, could I say 15 grand? Yes. Could I have said 10 grand? Sure. Could I have said 25 grand? Sure. I think you set that dollar amount that you feel that you can close this deal as quickly as you can. And I want you to think about, how do you determine this down payment? I want you to think of this. If you put 10% down on this house through just conventional lending, that's 35 grand, right? So I'm going to go down from there. But would you agree with me that there are more people that have 20,000 than 30,000? Sure. Are there more people that have 10,000 than 20,000? Sure. So the lower you get that down payment, you're just going to open up your pool of buyers even more. So obviously I need to have it more than 3,000 because that's what I'm promising to pay the seller. Next, I want to determine the monthly payment. We've already done this. We've already said the going rent for this place is $2,500. I hate going, hey, seller, I'm going to give you $2,500 because that's the going rent. And then I'm going to charge my new buyer more than what the going rent is. I think that's just stupid. You would never do that. You're overcharging for the house and you shouldn't do that. Monthly credits, again, will go to 0 and then a term of 1 year. Okay, so if they can't buy within that year, could I extend it? Could I find another buyer and get another 12,000 down? I have options, and that's kind of the beauty when you're controlling the real estate. Okay, so I don't own this house. Again, I'm just leasing it with the option to buy. I'm then assigning that over to my new buyer at a different term. Now, how do we profit from this? So this is the cool part, right? So the very first profit center is I'm going to sign an agreement with the seller. I'm going to sign an agreement with the new buyer. The new buyer is going to pay me 12,000, and out of that 12, I have to pay the seller 3. So that gives me a total profit of 9 grand the day I put these two together. Okay. The next profit center is the difference in monthly rent, right? The monthly payment amount. So as you can see, the new buyer's paying 2,500. We're paying the seller 2,200. It gives me $300 a month positive cash flow on a house you don't even own, on a house you have no money in. And I'm going to do that for at least 12 months. So that's $3,600. Okay. The last profit center is the difference in sales price. So if you don't catch what I'm going to say right here, I want you to rewind this in the replay and go back through it. Okay. So like I said before, the down payment is credited to the purchase price. So let's look at the seller and you. We agreed to pay them $350,000 minus the $3,000 we put down. So we owe the seller $347,000. The new buyer has agreed with you to pay $375,000 minus the 12. What is that? $363,000. So $363,000 minus the $347,000 is going to give us the difference of 16 grand at closing. Now, keep in mind, there'll be some closing cost here because you'll have to do a double close on this. Okay, but just keeping it simple, I want you to understand, how do we actually make money doing this deal? And this is just a great example. So the total profit on this house, $28,600 on a house you don't own and you have no money invested in this. Now, yes, are there answers to all the what ifs? Absolutely. But don't let that hold you back. There's so many things that, you could say goes wrong, but most of the things that people come up with, it just isn't normal. Like what happens if the buyer tears up my house? That rarely happens because we have a more qualified tenant in our property that has a commitment to buy the house. They're living in it as though they're buying it. They don't tear up properties, they enhance the property, right? So you have all these different what if scenarios, but I want you just to understand, where do we make money with this strategy? And again, this is just kind of a simple example, but I hope that helped.
Well, I thought that was an excellent, quick little overview on lease option because I love them too. Those are awesome. I've done a number of them, love them. Next question from Oliver. I currently live in London and use REI Pro to invest in the United States. Can you please tell me what criteria you look for finding the best areas to purchase properties? My investment strategy is to buy and hold for up to 5 years. I may not be able to make the call, but I'm eager to watch the replay. Thanks.
Yeah, so big question, right? So I'm going to give you 2 things to look for because, and this is really for everybody, especially people that you invest in your backyard, but you want to kind of expand and maybe go out to other places, especially when we look at from a long-term investment strategy. I mean, it really, at the end of the day, real estate investment is great everywhere. right? So, because here's why. Here's the number one reason why it's great everywhere. People have problems everywhere, right? People go through pre-foreclosures, they go through job loss, they go through health issues, they go through financial issues. That happens everywhere. And that's where the investment side gets even better. Now, unlike the lease option strategy, you could literally pay full price. They don't have to necessarily be motivated, but in general, real estate, you want to look for that motivated situation. But how do we actually find the best places? I see so many investors are like, oh my gosh, we can get more rent in this area versus that area. Me personally, since it's addressing it personally, how do we do it? I like to look at long-term slow growth. I don't like those places that boom really quickly because those are the ones that typically fall very quickly. I remember Riverside, California. Man, things were just booming. And as soon as the foreclosure, I mean, it was just a train wreck. But the two things that I want you to pay attention to, and again, there are many other factors here, but number one, I want you to find the capital of the state. Okay, so what is the capital of the state you live in? Number one. And I know this is from over the pond here, but just look at the capitals of the states. And then out of those capitals, how many of those cities have a major college or university? And that's where I want you to focus, because not only do you have the government there, which is going to be just a strong economy, you're also bringing in a major university that draws so much business that never seems to end. Unfortunately, this year is a little bit different with the online stuff. But in general, those are going to be the two things that I would first look for when I'm looking for long-term investment areas. Hopefully there's a couple of tips for everybody.
Great tips. All right, next question from Heather, general question. Can you please share some tips on building a marketing campaign for direct mail? I'm trying to put my very first campaign together and I will be wholesaling. Thanks, Heather. All right, Heather, what I thought I would do is take this opportunity. Let's just jump into REI Pro and let me show you, if I were you getting started, what would I do? I'm wholesaling, and let's go build an actual list. So I'm going to share my screen here, REI Pro. And inside of REI Pro, we have Lead Pro, which is our lead generation section. If you go there, you notice we have a number of different lists that you can build a campaign from. Now, if you're wholesaling, I would start out with either a vacant list or an absentee owner list. And then as you start expanding your strategies and ways of investing, you can get into some of these others. But let's just say we wanted to start with a vacant list, and going off what Chris said, since major universities and capitals, I'll just do Fulton County, Georgia, vacant. I'm going to run that search, and what we're going to notice is we have 6,920 leads. Now, you could just take all of these, pile them in to one campaign and start printing letters, postcards, and that kind of thing. Or we could start filtering this list down. Now, if you're going to be wholesaling, then we definitely want to look at the potential equity in this, because you've got to sell this or assign this contract over to another investor. Generally, these properties are going to be a little bit distressed. They're going to need a little bit of work. So you're going to need a minimum of 50% equity. So in our common filters here, I'm going to put 50 here in the minimum, okay? Anytime you do that, you can hit apply changes and kind of see where that list takes you. So now we went down from 7,000 leads to just over 4,000 leads. But you can also filter this list even more. You can use any one of these filters, property types. Maybe I'm a single family home kind of guy. Then I can expand residential, and I can just remove everything other than single family home, okay? That's the property type that I want to focus on. We could also look at any kind of attributes, when it was last sold, the year built. We can look at owners. I definitely like to remove company-owned properties, especially when I'm doing these vacants or absentee owners. I want to talk to the individual that actually owns the property. the one that's making the actual decisions. So let's just see where that takes us. I'm going to apply changes, and now we have 1,707. We could go ahead and build our campaign from there, or maybe we could remove owner occupied. Now, owner occupied, obviously this has already been flagged as a vacant house, but owner occupied, from the tax assessor saying they actually live there, I got that it's vacant, whereas the non-owner occupied are people who don't live in the house. They live somewhere else and this house is vacant. So we could remove the owner occupied vacant homes, and now we're down to 855. And we can keep doing this until we get to a list that you feel like fits your budget as far as doing any kind of marketing goes. But once you get this list filtered down, you can select all, add it over to a campaign, and then we're off and running with our list. And then from that list, look, we can go in and print letters, we can do postcards, we can do bulk skip tracing, and a whole bunch of other things we can do with this list. But that's kind of how easy it is just to go through, build the list. And I would, encourage you to use these filters to get a more targeted list of exactly what you're looking for, depending on what type of strategy you're going for. So hopefully that helped kind of build that campaign for you, since this is your first time. And again, once you build that, your campaign will be over here under the marketing tab. Let me change back over here.
Yeah, and you'll get a lot of options, things that you order, postcards. Obviously, take advantage of the postcard sale, right? So that's going to end tomorrow evening.
Right.
But you could do the bulk skip tracing. You can print your own letters. And again, that map only defaults to the first 100 dots. So I want people to understand, when you pulled up 60, we're not placing 7,000 dots on the map. Okay.
Right.
You could go up to 1,000 displayed. That was just a quick, example of it. And again, I would fine tune that to price as well. So I would even knock that down. You could take the middle price range and a little bit below, and that will knock that list down to a manageable list, especially just getting started.
Yep. Jose, general question. Have you guys ever had a buyer who was a no-show at the closing? And if so, what happens then with you and the original seller? You can still back out with the approval of the financial partners, right? Or can you go back to your list of buyers and use an extension with the original seller? I'm also hoping you would keep the end if you list it as non-refundable. And if it's a double close and I'm stuck with the property, if I have no funds to close on it, or is there still what we call transactional funding, but that is intended to be paid back right away with your lender, right? A lot of questions right in there.
Yeah, I got it. So I can tell you, I've never actually had someone not show up when I expected them to show up. I've had people postpone in the morning or cause a delay. I've actually been in a closing, Bo, where the title company totally messed up the paperwork and they had to go back and redo it, which just caused the delay. But I've never actually had someone not show up when they were supposed to be there. Obviously, you do have the subject to your financial partner clause. You could back out. And just keep in mind, it's not officially closed until all the paperwork is signed and the money's there. That's the big thing. So if you have no money, you're doing a double close. Keep in mind that the closing has not actually gone through. Okay, so it does make it a little bit tricky. I've never had it happen to me. I guess you could say it could. Hopefully it didn't happen to you, Jose. So I'm not real sure, but just keep in mind, you do have that option to back out. Keep in mind, real estate contracts are called option contracts, every single one of them. And what that means is the seller has to sell, but the buyer doesn't have to buy. Could you lose earnest money? Yes, you could lose that particular amount of money you put down on it. But you're not going to go to jail if you can't buy the house or fund the deal. Okay. So it would be ugly scene because I don't know if I'd want to be in that chair at the closing table when the buyer didn't show up, but obviously it could happen. But just keep in mind, you could back out of that. So I wouldn't stress too much about it.
Yep. So I've got a couple of people asking, actually, kind of on a previous, the one about the mailing campaign, want to know if I could show you how can I actually do a mailing from there? So Jeff, you know what? If you'll open up that Q&A panel, just type in, can you show me how to do the mailing? Then I'll be happy to run through that example.
Yeah, we can come back to it.
We'll come back to it, and I'll actually take that campaign and we'll go order some postcards from it. Okay, I hope that I don't get this name wrong, but Ashraful, hopefully. How about I just shorten it to Ash? Okay. Ash wants to know, how can I generate probate leads using REI Pro? Well, the REI Pro doesn't include a specific search for probate leads. Now, we are constantly looking for reputable companies to provide leads on a nationwide scale, such as probates. We do have to do everything on a nationwide scale, because I mean, we have users also in, I think it's over, last time I looked, 33 countries. But so whenever we do this, we have to do it on a national scale. And we just really haven't found anyone that's passed our quality checks yet. Now, that being said, you can check with your accounting. There's also a couple of websites out there. You know, and they have some of this stuff, and they're good in certain parts of the country. And hopefully they will be in the area that you invest in, and maybe you can pull a probate list from them. But once you have that list, you can go ahead and import that into REI Pro, and then right into a marketing campaign. And then from there, we can use any of the marketing tools, from the letters, the postcards, bulk skip tracing, and do everything else with the campaign. We just don't have a specific lead source for the probate yet. Okay, next question from Ashley in wholesaling. When finding and qualifying a cash buyer, how do I verify that they are financially able? Also, should I be working on finding cash buyers before I have seller leads? Thank you.
Yes, we actually have what's called an investor questionnaire. It's in REI Pro. If you go to the office section, it's under general forms, number one. And this is, you know, some basic questions you'd want to ask your investors when you're building a list. Now, I will say that when I got started, I was told to go find the property. Don't even go look for a buyer. If you're going to look for a buyer, take that time to go find a property. That's how it was said to me. So I just focused on getting a good deal. Because I was also told, if you get a great deal, you're not going to have to worry about a buyer. So when I put my first house under contract, again, this is kind of old school back in the day, but I ran a newspaper ad and I had a ton of investors call, and I took down their basic information, what they're looking for, price range, things of that nature. And the next property that I found, I would just call that list a buyer. So I literally built my investors list off of my first property. So I'm going to tell you, you need to go find the deal first. Okay. Now, once you find the deal and you're going to put it under contract with a new buyer, you're going to sign the contract to a new buyer. Could you ask for proof of funds? Absolutely. I could tell you one of the third rehab ago that me and Bo did, and this was a full price qualified buyer, which happened to be an investor. We asked for proof of funds from him buying it at full price, because we don't want to go through this long process of, you know, the title company and doing all this work to find out that they just don't have the funds. So once you put under contract with the seller and you're getting ready to put it under contract with the buyer, it's okay to ask for proof of funds. And I want you to think about it. Doesn't every realtor already do this, you know, for a qualified buyer? So if they're doing it for every buyer, because they don't want to waste the time, I don't necessarily would qualify them or have them show proof of funds if I don't have a property for sale. So I think that part's different. But once you get the property, I think it's totally fine to ask for proof of funds.
Awesome. Next question from Christopher, general question. When will you create a filter tab to create your own search from start to finish using any and all filters? Hey, Christopher, I can tell you we have been working on something just like that. It is a little bit tricky. We do have 150 plus million properties, and technically, really all of those properties would almost fit in one of those search result types that we already have. So for example, if I just search for, San Francisco, California, or Broward County, and I just started there generically, I could literally pull up millions of properties, and they're just kind of, it could take a long time to filter through those search results. So we are working on that to do that. But today, that's why we ask you to choose the main criteria first. Let's go ahead and figure out what your main focus is, and then you can use those filters to apply to kind of whittle that list down. And just like I used a vacant list, I was also able to use some of those filters to remove certain things and also look for absentee owners at the same time. So that list kind of overlapped between a vacant and an absentee owner. And a lot of those filters, do overlap in different search types. So you are able to start with one search and actually kind of get, a kind of a crossover list. But we do hope to have at some point where you just throw it out there to the wall and just start seeing what everything's around there, but not today.
Yeah, it's not like Zillow where you just put in, because Zillow only displays properties that are for sale, that are listed through Zillow, or they're not pulling the 150 million leads up, and that's kind of a big thing. If you just pulled up like absentee owners in LA County, I mean, there's a lot of properties and data to pull up. So
exactly. All right, question from Peyton. Hi, Chris. Is the Wholesale Blueprint course the same as being a member of REI Pro? Are the 13 videos the same? What would I learn different from the Wholesaling Blueprint course from being a member of REI Pro? Thank you so much.
Yeah, so the home study courses, I want people to look at these two things as being different first. To me, the home study course is kind of the foundation of what is the strategy, how is it defined, what types of neighborhoods work best for that strategy, and kind of goes into more the foundation, the knowledge side, where REI Pro is really the tool that you're going to need as well to really run numbers and go through the executable steps and pull data and do direct mail marketing and house your buyers, house your properties, and so forth. Now, although we do give you a lot of awesome education included with REI Pro, it's in a different format, right? So I would start with REI Pro and go through the wholesaling training series. And if you feel that you're still confused or you need more, knowledge about that particular strategy, then I would get the home study course. So it's two different things from my opinion. There's a lot of things that I talk about in the course that I don't talk about in the video. There's things that I talk about in the videos that I don't necessarily emphasize in the course. It's a different way of teaching. Some people love the whole idea of just going through a video and they can learn everything they want to learn. Where some people will just, hey, give me the nuts and bolts and I want it defined. I want to read about it. So I think it's also a different format. So, but I would start with REI Pro, go through the videos, and then follow those executable steps. I think that's the big part.
Yep. And then a lot of people want to just be held accountable and fast track, and that's where the coaching comes in when we have availability and time.
Right.
Jarvis Wholesaling, how to get started on wholesaling, like what to target?
That is a big question, right? So let me just try to...
You're gathering your thoughts over there?
Well, I think part of, doing these things, which we absolutely love teaching people and helping people and trying to cut through the crap that you see out there as far as the education side, it's being able to break the information down so simple that I got it, right? So when there's a big question like this, obviously the first thing is just getting the education, because going through the training series is going to tell you where to target, where to start. Where did I start? I just started in my car. I drove neighborhoods. I'm looking for potential vacant properties. I'm then, researching them. I'm then marketing them. And then I'm going to close the deal. Now, today's world, we've been able to break this down so much easier. And that's what I call those 10 executable steps, right? So if you're just getting started, what do you target? I think it's like you said, Bo, let's target the vacant properties. Either it be direct mail, or you're out there driving neighborhoods, or if you're going to do bulk skip tracing, maybe find a phone number and then go through the phone script. If you follow the 10 executable steps, you're going to close a deal, period. And I think people just overlook it like, oh, that's too simple. That's what we did. We broke something so difficult down. I think the most confusing part about real estate is what to do next, right? So I did this, but now what? And I think if you follow those guidelines that we've already put in the system, you're going to just walk through it. Guess what? It's not going to be perfect the first time you go through it, but things always happen. Who cares? Just get through the deal. I think that's the most important thing. I would be in my vehicle driving for potential vacants. I would also do Lead Pro for vacants, and those are different vacants, or could be different vacants than the ones you're driving for. The ones I'm driving for, it could have been vacant for 2 days. Maybe they're in between tenants. And the landlord's going, I'm not sure what we want to do with this property anymore. Those are the ones you find driving around. Where the ones in REI Pro are going to be ones that are deemed vacant by the post office, meaning that no one has picked up the mail for at least 90 days. Could those cross paths? Absolutely. But when I'm driving, I'm also learning. I'm learning the neighborhoods. I'm learning what things sell for. I'm learning what things rent for. I'm just out there. And I think that's a big part. You can only hide behind your computer or your phone for so long. At some point, you're going to have to get out there, right? So I think getting in the car and just driving is such a great way to find deals. So I'm looking for potential vacants. I'm also looking for sale by owners, but let's make sure that we are in the right neighborhoods. I think that's the big thing. And the right neighborhoods to me is what we call a C neighborhood. And a C neighborhood is the middle price range and lower. Now, don't go to the war zones, but in between the war zones and that C, that average price market, and start there. And then also I'd be doing direct mail. Those are going to be the two things that I would starting to target. The target market is, again, Bo did this very well. If you're wholesaling, you need to get at least 50% equity in your search results, okay, when you do direct mail. But follow the 10 executable steps, and I couldn't tell you the amount of testimonials that we have just on those steps. If you just follow those steps, you're going to be good. Yep. That was a long answer to, it seems a short question, but it was a big question. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here with this.
Hey, well, that's okay. I got a chance to chat with some other members over here at the same time going, is this really a live webinar? And I'm like, oh, yes, it is. Oh, okay, just checking. So that's awesome.
This is pre-recorded. No, I'm just kidding.
No, this is
now
live.
Tomorrow it won't be, but right now it is. So
right. Okay. Next question. Kevin, how do you keep the lead data current? I see very old pre-foreclosure leads that are no longer valid in the Lead Pro. Thanks, Kevin, for the question. And I thought I would answer this by giving you some insight kind of on how all of this works. Now, I will say that we are kind of in a strange time right now with COVID and the moratorium that's in place on most properties. But for a lead to qualify as being in pre-foreclosure, first, it must have a filing of a lis pendens, notice of transaction, notice of sale, and it has to have that filing over a certain period of time. Now, from that list of potential properties that are in pre-foreclosure, we have to remove properties that meet other criteria that I would say it disqualifies them as being still in pre-foreclosure. So for example, if the property were to sell at auction, okay, we're going to receive notice that the deed changed, therefore it's no longer in pre-foreclosure. The same is true if the bank takes the property back. It's going to move over into our bank owned lead section. Or if it sells on the MLS, we're fed that every single day. That would disqualify and it would be removed. But if a homeowner is able to get a mortgage or a refinance, we get fed that mortgage data, that too is going to remove the pre-foreclosure fraud. So, but right now, we've opened it up just a little bit because of the moratorium, the filing for the list pendant and the notice of sale. It may appear to be several months old, and you may think that that's very old and it's not really in pre-foreclosure. But what I can say is the bank hasn't taken it back. It hasn't completed the auction. The home has not sold. They haven't been able to get a mortgage or refinance. So these people are most likely in trouble. And when this moratorium expires, I think there could be a lot of foreclosures all of a sudden, because at some point, if they stop making their payments, the bank's going to go ahead with the auction. So if they were in trouble before the moratorium, they're probably still in trouble. And now would be the perfect time to be reaching out to these people to help them out. But that's a little insight as to how we look at, what's in pre-foreclosure and then how do we disqualify them. But some of those events have to take place to say that they're not actually in pre-foreclosure.
Yes, that was a really good question, Kevin. Just so you know, me and Bo probably had a 45-minute conversation on this question because, like Bo said, we want to open it up. It's just an odd time right now. It's just weird how things are being done and handled. And, we're trying to give you guys as much as we can because, they were in trouble before. They're most likely still in trouble.
Yep. And those people need help. And if you're doing pre-foreclosures and you know how to structure these deals, then it's almost like, hey, look, these people are in trouble. It's like almost like a duty to go out there and see if you can help these people, because the day is coming of wrecking, I guess, if they haven't been able to catch that up. Next question from Brooke. It's on lease options. Hi, guys. My question is this. If I'm going to wholesale or assign back the lease option to the seller, do you usually go to the market at an increased sales price and get paid through the non-refundable option deposit and share in the increased sales price? Or do you market the home at the lowest price the homeowner is willing to take and get paid only through the option deposit? Second question, in your experience, percentage-wise, how often are you splitting the option deposit with the seller, if at all, and at what percentage split? You are doing a great job. Thanks, Brooke.
Yeah. So, hey, Brooke, I'm thinking the first slide where I broke down the lease options probably going to answer this. This question. I was a little confused with the wholesale or assign back part. I'm thinking you're talking about lease option the whole time. But at the end of the day, in general, I want to go as low as I can with the seller and as high as I can with the buyer, and then find the middle ground there, I think. Now, although lease options are just, gosh, man, it's just so different because I can literally pay the seller full price. You think about it, your new marketing this year should be, I can pay full price guaranteed. You will get a lot more calls because you can do the lease option. Okay. So I'm going to give you full price, but I'm not going to give it to you all today. Right. So, but a lot of realtors use this, and still, one of the big ones that is not just in Atlanta area, I've seen his billboards in several areas, is Mark Spain, where basically he's a realtor. I'm going to buy your house. I'm going to buy your house, guaranteed type of thing, where if it doesn't sell, I'm going to buy it. Again, it's a marketing tactic people use, but again, you have to separate yourself from that. So I'm hoping that the first slide where I broke down how to structure what that means, what I pay the seller, because I never split a down payment with a seller. Number one, that doesn't ever happen. I'm going to agree to a certain price. I'm going to get more from the new buyer, and then I'm going to pay the seller what I agreed to. So there's no really splitting of things there. So, and which then would eliminate any kind of percentage that I would use. Now, from a percentage point of view to the new buyer, I like to try to stick between 3 to 5% with the new buyer. I want to go as low as I can with the seller. Again, I try to take whatever that monthly payment is and then offer them a little bit more than what that monthly payment would be. And here's why. I didn't mention this earlier. Normally, when you rent a house, normally you get a deposit that's probably the same amount as the monthly rent. Even if it's first and last month security deposits. It's usually the same. If I rent it for $2,000, I get a $2,000 security deposit. But with a lease option, I like to give them a little bit more. So if I pay you $2,000, I'm going to give you $2,500 as option money, or what we call down payment, because that's already better than if they rented it and just got a security deposit, which would be refundable. So I don't really focus on splits or percentages with the seller. But go back and watch how I broke that lease option down. I hope that will help answer your question here. If not, ask it in the live Q&A.
Yep. Question from Tim. I believe this is our last mail-in question, then we'll take some live questions. Yep. What does the legal description numbers mean for the properties?
Yeah, good question. I don't know if I've ever had anybody ask me this question before, but it's such an important thing because we actually put the legal description in every contract that we do. So what is it? So basically the county, this is the county's description of the geographical location that literally identifies the precise location on Earth. And everybody does it a little bit different. It could be like lot 1 of block 12, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes it's just crazy numbers or letters. I don't think we have to know what it all means outside of that is that piece of land sitting on Earth. And that's how the county describes it. So it is, and here's why they do it though. You could have 123 Main Street, 123 Main Drive, 123 Main Circle, 123 Main Boulevard, and that could get confusing where the legal description is that precise location on Earth per that county. And every county does this a little bit different. So just keep that in mind. So hopefully that answered it.
Yep. All right. Questions. We'll take some live questions. So if I'm going to try to go back through the chat. If Chris is answering something, I just stopped my screen share there. Let me get that back. I'll try to see if I can get the questions if anybody asks them in the chat, but if not, please go into the Q&A panel and type them there. That's where the main question panel is. So Dan, first question, he says it's a big question. Big question is how to take control of property, whether it's listed or not, to work a good enough deal to flip or perhaps keep if major cash isn't needed for at least 3 to 5 years or more. How do you take control of the property, whether it's listed or not?
When you say control, that means you don't own it. Is that what he's referring to?
But
like
he's
a lease option.
And he's trying to work a good enough deal. He's saying to flip or perhaps keep. So it's kind of you're not really going to flip a lease option per se because you don't actually own it yet.
Well, you could, I mean, yes, you could technically lease option it, fix it up and resell it, but that's going to be a little bit tricky to do, but I'm not sure I understand the big question.
Yeah, maybe Dan, you can.
Yeah, maybe rephrase that.
Rephrase it.
Maybe I'm thinking too much into that. So we just want to get you the right answer. That's all.
Exactly. Alex says, how do you comp a property with no nearby comps due to square footage or a square footage lot? Maybe it's a condo and that hasn't had a condo comparable or a school. How do you find an accurate number for these comps? And then he had a quickly follow up there that said, I meant single family home. So how do you can't find comps due to some kind of square footage problem maybe?
Yeah, we had this question a few weeks ago, and obviously it does make it more difficult when you can't get that roundabout square footage to just kind of narrow it in. Obviously there's going to be a buffer. You could go a little bit higher. You can go a little bit lower with square footage. And the one thing with comps is I think a lot of investors that are so eager to flip a house, they always take the lower square footage comps because those have the higher cost per square foot sold. And that makes their price they think they can sell it for way up here. And then when it comes down to it, when they try to sell it, they can't. I always like to take some low, take some high, and real estate comps is all about finding what's in that middle. So now really the question is, what happens if I can't find any? That's the tough part. You might have to go back further in time. You could talk to a local realtor that maybe, has some good knowledge about that particular area and what it could potentially sell for. You don't want to get an appraisal because it's going to cost money. But if it's a home run deal, you might want to invest in getting an appraisal done. What else? What am I missing? I think that's about it. You might have to go a little bit higher. Like I said, go a little bit lower on the square footage, go further out. You could go back in time a little bit more. Again, it's not a great answer because there isn't anything that has sold that's comparable to that particular square footage. So it's all going to be somewhat of a guessing game from that point forward, but just trying to give you a few tips there.
Yep. Alex also wants to know, how do you do a double close on a wholesale deal and not tell the buyer how much you're making if the buyer wants to have a walkthrough with the seller before purchasing?
Well, I've done numerous deals where I've allowed the buyer to go into the house with the seller and go through the house. I think it's all on how you define it up front, what your intention is, what you're doing. When I first did it, I was like, oh, he's a contractor. I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Right. So I kind of fibbed a little bit to try to get the deal done because it felt awkward that, but sometimes you run into those. And I think it's okay if they do that. Or another thing you could do is, how just take a qualified buyer, when they come in, they want to look at a property. What do they always make the seller do? Leave. Leave the house, type of thing. When you're wholesaling, it's kind of like, well, you're the buyer. Why would we leave? It's that awkward situation, but why don't you just ask the seller, hey, would you mind? I've got some contractors coming through. I don't know if you could leave the home for 30 minutes just so we can get a good evaluation of everything. I just want to be prepared. So when the day we close, I have my crew at the property ready to go. Might be a little fib if you run into that particular situation, but you do want to avoid any kind of, because at the end of the day, the seller's getting what they agreed to, right? It doesn't matter if it's your money or if it's somebody else's money, they're getting what they agreed to. So you just want to try to avoid any kind of controversy that might happen. So.
All right, I'm going to jump back over real quick. I'm going to share my screen. I want to show you guys how to go ahead and place that postcard order, since you're asking, could I actually show you how to do that now that you know how to build the campaign? All right, here's where we left off. Let me close a few windows here. Once we build that list, it was over here in marketing, and as Chris said, there was only 100 leads here that pulled up. That's why we only see 100. That was the default amount. But let's say we built the campaign, we're ready to go. And over here under actions, if you drop that down, we have order postcards. You could also do skip tracing from here, print letters, export, and so on. But to order postcards, click the link. This will walk you through a general step 1, step 2, all the way to step 7. You need to choose what type of mailer you want to do. Okay, you have options of a single mailer, 2 mailers, 3 mailers, a drip campaign. That's simply, you're going to mail it one time. I'm going to build a list of thousands, maybe 10,000, but I only want to mail out each week or once a month, 500 at a time, whatever your budget allows. But you don't have to go back and reorder. It'll just put it on autopilot for you. So let's say we're doing a single mailer. We generally print and mail them either the same day or the next day. We do say we would do it within 3 business days from the time you place your order. Then we can click next. So now once we've done that, here we are with what postcard do you want to send? Now we will recommend postcards at the top based on what type of lead search you did. In this case, it was vacant homes. So we have 6 vacant home postcards here that you can choose from. And you can see the front, you can click preview, see the back, or you could go down to a more of a general postcard. And then of course you could take advantage of any of the 60 or 90, maybe there's 100 now postcards. Once you find one you like, just click select, and then we go to the next page. And here we want to enter our contact information. Now this is actually really important. The system's not going to let you move forward unless you fill out either the contact information here, or if you have a custom postcard, which the system will allow you to upload your own custom postcards, and maybe you've already got your contact information printed physically on the card, then you can check this box that says, I do not want contact information printed on the card. Do that, it will bypass the check. But we basically have line 1 and line 2. Now I generally recommend putting some type of telephone number first, and then I like to put a website next. Okay, some people put email addresses in here. I've seen a number of things. Some people put call me, although it has contact us already. And you can hit this little refresh preview link here. This will refresh and kind of show you what it's going to look like and where it's going to be. Again, you can enter your return address here. So I like to enter a return address. Not all mail is going to be perfect. You will get some mail returned. That's just the nature of the business. And when you get that list back, there are other ways to market that property, but you'll need to know which ones come back. So if you want to put the return address, do that here. You can also choose mail a copy to me. And that way, when you receive your postcard, if your marketing area is around you, when you receive your card, then it's a good indication that everybody else around you is receiving that card. So once you do that, hit next. And this is kind of the review stage. You want to make sure that you typed in the correct phone number. You didn't misspell the website or your address. Make sure you look at this. We try to look at it as well, but with, literally thousands of postcards being printed every day, we can't catch all of the mistakes. That's why we need you guys to do that here. Click I approve, hit next. And then we have a choice of running ListMate. Now this is really important if you're running a vacant lead search, okay? Let's say I had put that 1,000 list or 855 I had whittled my list down to. I would want to run ListMate, okay? It is 2 cents a lead, so in this case it cost me $2. But what this is gonna do is run every one of those addresses through the national change of address. So keep in mind that the post office has already deemed this property vacant, meaning that they're not delivering mail there. So if they're not delivering mail and they don't have a forward of an address where they have moved to, then it's going to be an automatic return postcard to you, and you're going to waste money. And we don't want you guys to do that. We're also going to scrub the list for other types of vacancy situations or address errors. There are times where 123 Main Street, and on that street, the 123, it's what the tax assessor had, wasn't accurate, and it's just an invalid address. We will collect all of these, move them out of this campaign to its own specific area called ListMate errors, and then you can go correct, review, and then put those back in a different campaign. So all you have to do is click that. It'll tidy up the list real quick. Then we hit next, and whatever's left over, this will show you, okay, in this case, I have 100. I'm going to mail it out as soon as possible, and then we're going to use one of the credit cards and the promotion. There's where you would put that current promotion we have going on for tomorrow, and then you would hit place order. So it's pretty simple actually to place the order once you build. It's not really that difficult. Anything that I missed there, Chris?
No, I think it's super important that you run that ListMate though. That to me is a no-brainer. The list needs to be clean because not every tax assessor is perfect. And the United States Post Office is going to help clean up that list and make sure, if there's a change of address, super important that we correct that before it gets mailed. Otherwise, you're just throwing money away.
Yep.
So clean that list as best as possible. I highly encourage that.
Yep. Okay, let me switch back. Next question coming from Susan. I did my first sandwich lease option earlier this year. The tenant buyer is late on his rent from last month, made the partial payment. He is yet to pay for November. He says he has too much invested and he will get caught up. He has done this before. He just needs a little more time. I hate to evict, but I may have to. The home is in another state. my understanding is that I need to submit a letter first. If they don't move out, then take them to court. Any advice? Well, I can tell you, Susan, I actually haven't had any trouble on the lease options, but I have had some houses for rent, and I have a property manager. Actually, that's how I got to my property manager. I heard something very similar to this. Guy got late, a little bit later. Next thing I know, here I am a few months behind, but I was a little bit of a softie. He has a little 9-year-old girl. I don't want to kick him out, make him home. I heard all kind of sob stories. So I hired this property manager just say, you know what? I don't want to deal with the tenants, the toilets, those type of things, these late payments. Next thing you know, I hired them. They call me up I wouldn't say very next day. Let's just say it's 3 days later, and just wanted to let me know that they're going to be sending me a check. They had collected all past 5 months up front, and he's already prepaid for the next month. So the rule of thumb that they use is rent's due on the 1st, late on the 5th, and dispos are filed on the 8th, and we're going to get you out. They've just seen it too many times where people start taking advantage. Now, to answer your other question, and Chris may have some insight, I haven't had to evict with that one person and the one that I had to deal with, but I let my property manager deal with all that stuff. I haven't had to do it, but there are different rules. Could be from county, state to state as to that process. And they walked me through it one time about having to give notices, and then they have the right to cure, and they have 7 days and all this different stuff. So I'd look up your local laws and wherever that's at to make sure you're following those guidelines properly.
Yeah, I'd want to know the story behind it, and is it believable, right?
Yeah.
So I think that, but I would schedule and set up a payment plan for the next month. Like, hey, this is how much is due, and definitely make sure you get it in writing, meaning a text message or an email. If they still fail to come through, I'm a little bit different. Like, I'm putting a 3-day notice on your door. I don't give a crap what the law is. You don't pay, you don't stay. But again, I'd want to understand the story. But at the end of the day, you still it's a business, right? And I mean, if you don't pay your car payment, they're going to come repo it. So,
oh no. And I've heard so many stories from that property managers. Like one time the paramedics were there and they were wheeling this guy out, and she was tacking the door on the late payment. The paramedics like, this guy's having a heart attack. How can you be evicting him from his house? And she said he wasn't having a heart attack 4 days ago when his rent was due, and she tacked the door. She literally, it is a business, and hey, we got to pay our mortgages. They need to pay their rent,
Yeah, that's how I am. I'm just, I want to understand the story. I think that's important. Is it believable? If it's not believable, I would say, hey, here's how much you've paid this month, and I need X dollar amount on this date, and I'm only going to do it for the next month. Other than that, everything's going to be back on time, or I'm going to be forced to put a 3-day notice on your door. And I don't want to do it, but unfortunately I have to. Don't make me do this. Like, I'm going to turn it on you.
Mm-hmm. Question from Brad. How do you handle a seller that's dragging their feet? I have a seller that has said yes multiple times, but I can't get him to sign. He ghosted me for a while. Then he got back in touch with me. I know he has motivation due to his financial situation, but I can't figure out how to get him to move forward. Any tips?
Yes. This one's easy, actually.
Takeaway close.
That's right. This took forever for me to learn this, by the way. So I call it the takeaway close. And the takeaway close is the moment you're not interested in the property anymore is probably when he's going to sign the contract. He's afraid of losing you. Right now, he's attached to the property, apparently, because if he's motivated, he needs the money, he needs to move out, whatever it may be. He's dragging his feet here. There's some type of attachment to it. Sometimes it is as simple as change. People don't want to change, and moving out of the house, selling the house, it's a change. So the moment you're not interested in the deal is probably when he'll sign the contract. Mm-hmm. And you can express that in a lot of different ways. But I would say, hey, look, I have to, I'm either going to buy your house or I'm going to buy another property. I know you're looking to sell. I'm pretty confident we're at a good price. But if you're not willing to sign the contract for me to buy it, I have to move on. You know, I don't want to waste your time or mine. So there's a lot of different ways to present that, but there's one.
Al, what are the best strategies that are working now finding out-of-state sellers for lease options?
You mean marketing strategies?
Yeah, what's the best strategies for, basically it looks like he's trying to find out-of-state sellers for doing a lease option. What's the best way to go about going to find those people?
You know, it's the two marketing strategies we have in REI Pro, and it's the two marketing strategies of why we put it in REI Pro. It's direct mail or bulk skip trace. Me personally, if you're doing a low volume, I want to call someone. I want to talk to you on the phone about the property. I want to jump right in. If it's a more higher volume, then it's going to be direct mail. Out of those, if you just did those two things, you'll get a deal. It's just a matter of time. It's a matter of you hitting them at the right time. I always say real estate investing is always about situations. It's hitting them at that one moment of time that they're like, I have to do something with this house. And you never know what time that's going to be, unfortunately, until you send them some information or you pick up the phone and call them. So to me, those are the only two things. I don't do all this crazy nonsense, other things in this business. You know what? I didn't even do that. All I did to do well over 400 deals is direct mail and call. And I will hold firm on doing that today. You could put me in any city today, and you could have the new investor use all that high-tech new technology of remarketing and voicemail drops and all that bull crap, and you just give me those two options, I will do way more deals. Because not only when you do, especially the phone calls, Bo, your confidence goes way up the more phone calls you do in this business, how you talk, you get so much better at the conversation that you ultimately do more deals because now the seller trusts you. You get better at how to structure the conversation, what to say, what not to say. Why did I even say that? And when you learn from your own small mistakes, you will close more deals than somebody saying, yeah, you want to sell or not? Look, I'm looking to buy. Here's how much I can pay. If not, I'll move on and buy someone else. That hard close type of mentality. You build trust with people and show people that you're different. And I already gave you one headline for lease options. We will pay up to full price guaranteed. That marketing headline right there, I would be using, because that marketing headline right there is so unique to people. Because if you're marketing one house, there could be somebody else marketing that same house. And if all the letters say, you know, hey, Bo, you remember Ashland Trail?
Yeah.
So this beautiful house, by the way, that we remodeled, we bought, remodeled. This lady had this house vacant for 6 years, right?
Yep.
And we didn't even send direct mail. You know what we did? We found her cell phone number through REI Pro, and we picked up the phone and we called her. And she sold the property to us. And while she was talking to us, she said, yeah, I've received all these letters from people wanting to buy my house. And I'm like, well, how come you sold the property to us if you've had all these letters? She goes, you're the only one that called. You know, sometimes it's that simple. Is just picking up the phone and making that call. But those two things, no brainer.
Yep.
That's all I'd be doing.
I was saying, well, what if a buyer doesn't want to use your title company due to a bad experience with paperwork in the past with another title company?
That's fine. Go build. I always say you should always build relationships with multiple title companies, not just one.
Yeah. Al, if you run into some cash, do you recommend buying properties and flipping or landlording? I'm going to let you have a field day with that one.
Can you repeat that again?
If you run into some cash, would you recommend buying properties and flipping them or landlording?
You're going to let me tackle that one?
Yeah, because I think I know what you're going to say about the landlord.
Actually, you're not going to know what I'm going to say.
Well, no, it's live.
If I were the person that ran into a bunch of money, you know, the very first thing I would do, I would get a coach. because you can fumble through your first couple deals, but if you get a coach and I'm working with you, you're going to know how to do this the rest of your life in multiple different ways and go down the correct road and understand and take my experience over the last 20 some years and apply that to what you're going to be doing moving forward. If I ran into a bunch of cash, I'd go get myself educated enough to go actually do this business on a big scale. Because when I got started, I was like, I just want to see how big can I make this? And, you know, I wanted to go big. We ultimately had 5 office locations, and I was charging people $10,000 just to even work in the office. And I would split the deals with them 50-50. And I used their 10 grand. We put it back into marketing. We had radio ads, billboard ads. I mean, we were doing everything. And you know what that did? Brought in more deals. And you started to build something. So I would want to know how to do all that stuff if it were me. And then I would do a combination of buy and flip and buy and hold. I don't think you do one or the other. I think if you're the person that's like, yeah, I could just sit on it for 10 years, that's great. You can buy and hold. But for most people, I would imagine that, hey, I need to make a little bit of money today, but I also want to hold on some of the good ones that I could project that might be good long term.
Susan, have you guys ever thought about a referral program for REI Pro? Susan, we get asked that question all the time. So yes, we do constantly think about it. We are structuring something, probably won't be till next year, on a referral program. We're just pretty cautious about what are other people saying just so they can earn a buck, you know, type of thing. And so we've been really hesitant about just putting out there saying, hey, you send me the referral program, I'll give you a commission. And that's what everybody's wanting, but we just kind of haven't opened that up yet.
Yeah, we got something much bigger than that coming out.
A lot of stuff going on. Brad, do you recommend running ListMate every time you mail to the same list? If not, how frequently should you run it on the same list?
No, if you really, if you've already cleaned the list, the only thing you could possibly run into if you did it like a month later would be a change of address that would have just had to happen. Yeah. So I probably wouldn't run it every single time. I'd do it that one time. And then if I'm remarketing that particular campaign, I wouldn't use the ListMate again. I won't keep, Bo knows me pretty well. I won't keep the list that long to have to rerun it. Like I'm moved on to the next property at this point.
Yeah, Chris is one of those movers and shakers where I like to archive stuff and go back and look at maybe my notes and what I did on something. Chris is like, want a deal, delete, move on. List done.
That's it. When a deal done, buy. I don't even want to see it again. I don't even want to think about it at this point. I'm moving on to the next deal because I don't think I realize this, how many deals could be made right now. And it's just amazing. And I think when the more knowledge you get and support, I think it does open your eyes to go, oh my gosh, I could do that with that house. I drove by that house. Oh my gosh, I could maybe flip that house, or man, that guy's for sale by owner's been sitting there. Maybe he'd take a lease option at this point. You know, when you have that knowledge, it's like you understand there's so many deals to be made. So for me, it's like delete, move on.
Yeah.
I was like save, archive. Maybe no, I don't really want to delete that one. Well, maybe I should. No, what happens if they come back, you know? So that's just me.
Yeah, I see Susan going, I'm with Bo. I like to keep them. I don't know. Jonathan, it would be awesome to have an SMS follow-up sequence inside the system like REI, Black Book, Podio, etc. Having the ability to drag and drop or some other way to put those follow-up leads on a set and forget it follow-up sequence. Thanks. Well, Jonathan, number one, I'm not sure what every other vendor out there does. I do know some people that do SMS follow-up sequences like that. We've just been really skeptical on the SMS, mainly because of the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. Go read about it. And unless somebody literally has given you written permission to send them a text message, it is illegal, and you can get fined up to $1,500 per occurrence for every single text message you send. So you know, I'm pretty sure if you buy a list from somebody, get a list from somebody, you send out some marketing material, you bulk skip trace it, that doesn't mean you have permission just to automatically send them a text message. Those laws are very governed. I am hearing some things in the industry, different states that are cracking down on that. Lawsuits are starting. Florida is one of those where even the ringless voicemail drops are now being challenged and illegal. So a lot of marketing people, yeah, they want to set this and forget it type thing just to make their job easier, blast it out there. I get it. I understand it completely. Can we offer that as a feature from a programming standpoint? Absolutely. We could turn that on tomorrow. It's more about giving you a tool that potentially unknowingly you're going to violate the law. And it's not, there's probably not the SMS police running around, but what if you blasted out 1,000 of those and that one person happened to be an attorney that works for the FCC that understands the TCPA rules and regulations, and then they're going to call your bluff on it. They're going to start sending you letters, and they're going to start having cease and desist orders, and then you're going to look back at REI Pro and say, well, what did you let me do that for? You know, this is a really big topic that it's just not a simple answer of, yeah, we can do that, sure, no problem, type of thing. But great question, by the way.
You can't get in trouble unless you get caught. Right. So it's like speeding down the highway. I mean, yeah, you could do it, but yeah, it's one of those things. The technology behind all that stuff's a no-brainer. It's super simple. We could put all that new technology in here. It's just, I guess we're looking at we're trying to do the right thing instead of just trying to increase sales. I think that's a huge difference between us and a lot of people is when there's some skeptical pieces out there and maybe they've got some workarounds, it makes us nervous for you guys. And if I'm not going to do it in my business, I'm not going to have you do it. And I get it. It's out there. People use these things. It just makes us really nervous of somebody really, it takes one person, you know, to tear down something. And we're just not going to allow that to happen, unfortunately. If you want to venture out on someone else's platform to do it,
well, I mean, that's why we give you the bulk skip trace, and we're giving you the up to 3 mobile telephone numbers and up to 3 landlines. You can take that list once you skip trace it. You can export it. You can take that list, go put it on a marketing platform, on a set it and forget it, and let them do all the texting you want to. But it kind of takes that away from a push button thing that we did automatically on your behalf, you know, type of thing.
Yeah, I would set up an auto direct mail campaign. Because you could do multiple mailers. I would create some custom postcards, which we show you how to create your own custom postcard and use that. Okay, I've got mailer number 1. I'm going to do an auto follow-up on the second one. I'm going to do another follow-up on the third one. So you can do the same thing using direct mail. It's just the text messaging thing that makes us a little nervous.
Kevin, for the vacant leads, how accurate and current are those leads? And could these leads be listed on the MLS leveraging a realtor? All of our leads come in, well, let me preface with all of our leads. We get updated daily, Monday through Friday, on foreclosures, pre-foreclosures, tax data, mortgages, MLS feeds multiple times a day. All that's being fed into the system. The vacant leads are updated once per month, generally at the beginning of the month, somewhere between the 1st and the 5th. Generally, depends on when the post office releases that information to us. They do that on a monthly basis. They're really the only ones that know whether mail's being delivered there or not, and they're the ones that deem it vacant to begin with. So could it be listed on the MLS leveraging a realtor? Sure, I guess a property that we say is vacant could be listed with the MLS and a realtor, but we're not tapped into the MLS from a leads perspective like current listings. We're tapped into the MLS for sold data when it sells. So hopefully, Kevin, I know you've been patient here and we've been chatting back and forth, so I hope that answers the question. Hope you're still on to hear it. Dan, I'm still having trouble on the questions that you're asking. This last one is, section, township, range, yes, and mostly LO. So I'm still really not sure of what the overall question is. I'll dismiss these. Maybe you can package it up in just one complete question. Jose, how do you wholesale or do pre-foreclosures in other states in which you have to talk with the seller? Does the seller trust you with only meeting over the phone and doing negotiations this way? Would you Zoom with the seller if both the seller and I could do this? And how would you personally conduct inspections and repair estimates?
Well, I'd want to have somebody local to do that. I'm the kind of person that I need to put my eyes on it, or have somebody there that can put some eyes on it, because there are so many things that you can't see, just like I can't see the screen. There we go. There's Bo.
There you are.
It went black on me, so I was like, I can't
sometimes
see.
that PowerPoint just flips on me.
So here's a great example is Bobby, one of my students. So he goes and looks at this property, and the owner goes and takes him downstairs, and there's water in the basement. Like, you would have never have seen that anywhere. And I think, to me, that could be a make or break part of the deal. So I'm the type of person that I don't do foreclosures out of where I'm willing to drive. That's just me. If you are working pre-foreclosures in a different area, I would want somebody there that can put eyes on it.
Mm-hmm.
Could you do it? Sure. You know, it makes it difficult because, you know, if you're going to invest into something, I want to see it. Like, I need to understand it. I just don't need a conversation over the phone. The conversation over the phone is the easy part. The hard part for me is actually calculating the proper offer if I can't actually see it, because you're going to run into these problems, just like Bobby ran into this one property where there's water in the basement. So that totally changed the calculation of the deal.
Mm-hmm. John, hi, I'm a year-long member with REI Pro. Do you have a novation contract? Well, congratulations, John, for being a year-long member of REI Pro, number one.
I have to check Rocket Lawyer on that stuff.
Yeah.
We haven't uploaded anything like that. So Rocket Lawyer, if you go through the contract, see if Rocket Lawyer has something that you're looking for.
Nasir, hopefully I pronounced that correctly. How do you talk to the seller and help them understand that their house just really isn't worth what the Zestimate says it is?
Oh man, does that happen more often than not? Right? No, my house is really worth this. Like, the guy's house down the street sold for this. My house is worth it. You know, it's like me and Bobby were having a conversation the other day, and part of the conversation was some things that I say, and you could take it and rephrase it, but I always come across like, you know, unfortunately, look, I'm going to have to put at least 20 grand into this house because I need to bring it up to 2020. And unfortunately, it just takes money to do that. And I understand you want this much for the house, but I can't just cash you out. Now, however, I could pay you a little bit more than this number if you're willing to accept payments short term, which that might be a really good intro into going from a wholesale or retail job into maybe a lease option or a seller finance strategy. Sometimes it's about educating the seller. Like, sometimes will bring comps to the house, and I will show them, hey, look, comp 1, comp 2, this is just where your house is. I would love to pay you more, but the numbers just don't make sense. Now, I know that's probably hard for a lot of people just to say it that way, but wouldn't you rather be truthful and upfront with somebody than maybe trying to blow smoke up someone? So when I look at from that point of view, I probably come across a little more blunt, but I try to get the point across and set the expectation much earlier in the conversation to try to get them to understand, look, I'd love to pay you that, but it just doesn't support what's actually going on here. Maybe that helped.
Okay, question coming in from Sean. I'm in my trial period right now, considering switching from another software because of all the features that this software offers. My question is, are we able to search for multiple zip codes all at once in the software? I don't think I've seen a video on that. I did switch over to Lead Pro. I thought I'd show you this, Sean. Let's just start with an absentee owner search, and I'll just put in Peachtree City, Georgia, 30269. So what we do is we start with one area. It can be a city, county, or a zip code. So let's just say I start with that zip code, and I pull up this absentee owners. Right here under locations, I can add more locations, whether it's a zip code, a county. So let's say we want to add 30215. I can add that zip code, 30214. These are just some of the zip codes around this area where say I'm investing in. Once I hit apply changes, now I'm going to search all of those, and you'll notice the leads went up to 5,398. So yes, you can search multiple counties, multiple zip codes, multiple cities, all right there inside of REI Pro. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, and this is really, actually, this is super important when you live in a big city area, because there are zip codes you want to stay away from the low end and the high end, where you're trying to really market in kind of that middle price range. This is very important.
Yeah, and see, whereas like, in our little small little county over there, we just pick the whole county and go with it. But Harris was Harris County, Texas, where you used to be from. Certain areas you want to be on this side or that side, and you want to exclude those other areas. So you want to do the whole county.
Well, yeah, one of my students, Hector, in Las Vegas, we're actually pinpointing certain zip codes in that particular area as well. So, that's where you do it right there.
Yes.
All right, couple more.
Oh yeah, we got all kind of couple mores here.
We should do like the 24-hour nonstop Q&A.
Can I have beer?
Sure.
Well, we probably won't make it 24 hours if that's the case.
Especially if you're drinking beer. Bo will be gone in about 3 hours, I can assure you.
Well, I can go to liquor then. Be gone. We can only do that if we can get everybody up here and we put all of our faces up here so we can all see each other toasting, right?
Yeah, I do know, Bo, we are in the beginning of the year. And again, depending on how things, pan out as far as this whole COVID thing, but I do want to do like a 4-hour class on various strategies. But, hey, this 4-hour class is going to be just on pre-foreclosures, or this 4-hour class is just on, something else, especially lease options, because that one you really do need 4 hours to really kind of go through the beginning to the end on. So we do plan on doing some of those. We have actually been working super hard on some changes that are coming to REI Pro here in the near future. It was like every day I was like, oh man, we gotta get that out. Some things just take time, but we've been really working hard on getting some really cool new features, new changes that are coming to the system, and then really want to kind of devote part of the beginning of the year next year into some really good classroom education where you can ask questions as we're going through the presentation and so forth. So I think that knowledge is always key, right? I mean, you got to have the tool, but you have to have the knowledge. It's like you have to have both. And I really can't wait to do these classes. I know how people react when we do these types of classes. So normally we do it in person, but we'll have to see how that goes next year.
All right, so I'm going to see if we can speed some of these up just to kind of at least get a brief answer. So we'll keep our answers kind of short and hopefully precise. You ready, Chris?
Depends how short you want it.
Well, let's see. Well, we still have 13 open questions right now.
Okay.
John says, with the market correction that the quote experts are predicting, is it still a good time to lock up a lease option?
Yeah, I don't know what experts are saying what, but I would do a lease option at Lease options I love because it doesn't matter what the economy's doing. It doesn't matter what the housing market is doing. They always work.
All right, Dan, I think he's got a rephrased question here. My big question about taking control of a property revolves around the lease with the option. I understand you go out, you get the best deal that you can get with the big money coming to the seller in 3 to 5 years, but what is the hook marketing wise to speak to realtors and for sale by owner sellers to get them to go for it? And what clauses do you use to accomplish this? You know, I think Dan would probably be well go through that 3-part series on lease option training.
Yeah, which show them in the, click on the education real quick.
Yep, and
then just, yeah, you could just go through that series right there because that's going to explain it.
Yep. Come back over here, start with episode 1 and go all the way through all 7 episodes of that.
Yeah, and just to give you one answer on that is the simple fact that a seller can't sell the house and they can't afford to keep paying on the mortgage payments. Somebody just moved. And it could be a good thing, like someone's got a job promotion or took a new job, especially today, and now they got to move their whole family, but they can't afford the mortgage payment sitting on a vacant house. Maybe they tried to put it up for sale, but they couldn't sell it because maybe they owe too much on it and they couldn't get a good enough price. I mean, I could keep going on and on why somebody would, but they don't want to rent it because they just don't want to be a landlord, where a lease option just makes more sense to them.
And a kind of a follow-up on Dan, a few questions later, he said, most people doesn't seem to want to hear from you. Seems like there's a lot of negatives. He's probably talking about from the realtor's perspective on lease options.
Realtor.
You're not really going to get paid right then unless you structure it a certain way.
Yeah, I don't work with realtors with lease options, but you can.
Sean said he's having some issues bringing up a particular property in parts of North Carolina. Hey, Sean, reach out to our support team. That's what they're there for. Chat in. It could be how the tax assessor has it spelled. And I can tell you all those addresses are going to be USPS, CAS certifications, what they call it. So don't spell out drive and street and north and east and west and all these things. It's going to be, an N for north and DR for drive. So when you start typing in up here, say even in quick lookup, start typing, let the system start recommending for you. So 1, 23, as soon as you get past that third one and you start typing, it's going to start to, suggest what it is that's fitting that criteria as you go. Okay. So I would do that. Hopefully you'll be able to find what you're looking for.
Yeah. And customer support is not going to be there tomorrow, by the way. So
not tomorrow. That's right.
But let me point out one other thing that I've seen. People try to pull up a mobile home. It's got a mailing address, but it's sitting on a big acreage. So there's really only one actual tax assessor address that has multiple mobile homes on it that have mailing address, which is different than the tax assessor address. So that actually could not be sold with the land in that case, only the mobile home. So I've seen people, I can't find this address because it was a mobile home sitting on a much bigger acreage the acreage has its own tax bill address.
Okay. I'm going to read about 4 real quickly from Jonathan, and then I'm going to explain what he's doing just so everybody on the call can understand what he's talking about. Jonathan was the one that was talking about having a kind of a drag and drop SMS texting platform and all that stuff. He started putting some things in there. He said, yes, the leads that he's getting are coming to him via PPC. The SMS laws don't apply if they have opted in from the ad to get the information. He has the list scrubbed on the ones that he has not opted in. And if they've opted in from the PPC campaign, it's fine to SMS them. No time for mailing on those leads. So what Jonathan's referring to is it's called pay-per-click marketing, and he's got a website out there. He's driving traffic via ads. He's paying for those ads. They're going to land on his website. They're probably filling out a form. They're submitting that lead to him, and in that they're agreeing to communicate with him via text messaging. And then he's taking those leads, and I don't know if he's in REI Pro, it could be coming through Zapier or one of those connections, which then in turn is coming into as a potential lead, or he's uploading those leads into the system. That's generally what I see that Jonathan must be talking about. So in those instances, Jonathan, if you've already got permission to send them, I could see why you're asking for that feature. From a company point of view, we're going to have to just be real careful about offering stuff like that, because that you may be doing everything, and it sounds like you're pretty, pretty sharp guy. You understand what the rules, the regulations are, and those kind of things. But I would say that the vast majority of people don't necessarily understand or do a lot of high, pay-per-click marketing, and heck, that's why I wanted to explain it, because they probably wouldn't even know what you meant if I said PPC. So anyway, I appreciate you putting all that out there. Definitely things to think about there. Dan said, okay, I got an easy question instead of the hard one. Do you have a feature to get contracts signed electronically? Not directly inside the software. Once you create the contract, I know I've used everything from HelloSign to DocuSign to just send it out for electronic signatures. We haven't done any kind of arrangement with anybody. There's quite a few of them out there, and they're so easy just to take the contract and upload. We haven't invested the time to integrate that with REI Pro.
Well, there's a reason why, though.
Always a reason why.
It would be extremely rare that I would use the exact same contract with the same wording and then just having certain pieces editable. Even in a lease option, like I'll change the terms, or there's something in the agreement that I need to edit from, especially the maintenance part of it. Almost every seller wants to do it a little bit different. Like, okay, I'll allow the new buyer to paint, but anything over $500, I don't want someone tearing down my walls. Like, there's always something I have to constantly edit in. There's only a few paragraphs that I would actually just keep the same. So it just seems to me that I always have to end up changing some place that you wouldn't think, like the price or the name or the address. Other than those things, it always seems like there's something I have to change just based on the agreement to get the deal to go through.
Yeah. And Dan's commenting in here about no to the SMS blast. He said he's done SMS blasting. It's not appreciated. He had a VA doing a bunch of them, and was very grateful that he was not the one doing them. He said they were not happy. And nobody said we're all too inundated with scam likely calls and all that stuff.
Let me give you a hard fact. You have to be careful because most of these features are designed by programmers that have never even been in real estate. And that's what you have to be cautious of. Oh, let's just get that and throw that feature in there because that will sell. Most of these people have never actually have closed that many deals or even have been in real estate. That's the sad part about this business. So you do have to be careful.
Yeah, and then I've seen or heard of people where, because they wanted us to do the same thing to kind of get around that rule where it's not auto doing and all that stuff, where I can just show me the phone number and then just click a button that says send text message. And I have to click a button that says send text message. So it's not really an auto dialer situation. And I think they're trying to walk this very gray line. And I go back and I read, and I've reread this whole TCPA, and it just basically says it real simple so you don't, construe it. If you don't have written permission to do it, then you can't. I mean, it's really pretty much that simple.
Yeah. Hey, I'm all for technology, but there's some things you just got to manually do because it works out better.
All right, let's see. Alex, how do you comp rents? And I believe right now that might be the last one.
The easiest part is that's the only Zillow value we do bring over is the rent. Everything else is ours. So Zillow is probably one of the best places to get rents. You can also get rents from a local real estate management company as well.
Gotcha. And last one, I'm not going to read it out loud because he asked me not to, but Sean, definitely, I do see the address. Do me a favor and just either email support@myreipro.com, put in that address so it'll hit us. Might not be tomorrow, maybe Thursday before we can get back to you on that. I need to look under the hood and see how the tax assessor might be labeling
Right.
that property or something weird.
Yeah, and somebody said rent a meter. That's another place you could go as well.
Yep. Dan wants to know, forgot to ask, can I upload leads that I have from other places? Yes, Dan, all you got to do is go to the marketing tab and there's a button there that says import leads. You can create a campaign, give it a type, import your list. And by the way, there's a whole new features and drag and drop stuff coming on that whole import routine as well. We're even
Yes.
looking at all these people been asking for property imports on the property side, not the marketing campaign. How about bringing over custom fields, being able to drag and drop whatever's on your list and just show up in step one or the custom fields area. So look for that coming. We're trying to button it all up, and we go down this road and we want to release just that one feature, but then we're like, well, wait a minute, let's just go ahead and create this whole new marketing dashboard that's just going to be super easy to use and get around, looks more like properties, so we're trying to get a lot of that stuff done so we have a nice big update instead of just throwing one feature out there. So
Yeah.
appreciate
Well,
your patience and all that.
You update the system like at least 3 times a week of things that we don't just always talk about. I mean, there's a lot of hidden things too that we correct and do things. And that's our goal, right? Our job is to go in and, improve the system every
Yep.
single day. And on top of providing the educational component like we do tonight, it's also updating the system and making sure. I mean, you were talking to me today about, 89 million properties that you had to move over and just analyze. You're trying to find one, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes behind it, but that's just part of it, And, but yeah, we do have a really cool new update coming very soon. I hate to give dates because Bo always like, what'd you do that for? It might take longer, but, then he's stressed out. Oh, I got to hurry up and get this done, but there is a really cool update coming. It's going to simplify your life a lot more in the marketing area. So we're excited to get that out to you.
Awesome.
Until then, have a wonderful week. Thank you guys so much for joining us, being a part of this. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next live Q&A.